For today's North Country history lesson, we're talking about a famous summertime dish.
Oh, we sure are. Emily Griffin tells us the upstate origin of the salt potato.
It's summertime, and no barbecue is complete without a big pot of salt potatoes on the side. If you're new to the area, you may be wondering, what is a salt potato?
A salt potato is a white potato that's boiled and you cook it in salt, and it's pretty simple.
Dave Mizard is the co-chair for the annual North Country Goes Green Irish Festival, where salt potatoes are consumed by the hundreds.
We go through about 400 to 500 pounds of salt potatoes every year at the festival.
It's a treat you only find in upstate New York, where they were invented.
It didn't come from Ireland, it came from the Irish who settled in central New York.
In the 1840s, as the Irish potato famine struck, many Irish immigrants came to upstate New York. There were jobs for them at the salt springs in Syracuse, which was nicknamed Salt City for its wealth of production. The Irish workers had the idea to make a cheap and efficient lunch by boiling potatoes in the brine baths, and the salt potato was born.
It just is a callback to the Irish settlers in New York State, and it's nice to have a little tie to that heritage.
Still simple and delicious 150 years later.
It's one of our best kept secrets here in upstate New York. We got a lot of food secrets, and this is one of them.
So that's all there is to it. Most people like to eat theirs with the skins on, with just some butter, salt, and pepper. The perfect North Country staple. Emily Griffin, 7 News.